My name is Larry Christensen. This is my wife, LaVon. We're the parents of Bob and 4 other siblings. We're focusing on Bob today because he loved animals.
That love of animals was innate in Bob. Cattle, hogs, dogs, whatever, he loved animals.
And when he was in the 8th grade, we had a partnership, B&L Finishing. So a dear farmer friend of ours gave Bob 2 mother sows.
His motto was, and these words resonated in Bob's mind, he would say, "Hogs will pay the mortgage, Bob."
That's when Bob started in the farrow to finish hog business.
But the biggest help Bob had was his dad for encouragement, support, and advice.
He was 18, 19 years old, just out of high school, already starting to raise pigs on his own. Even as a youngster, he had great contacts and great vision to see where the industry was, what was happening in not just this local area, but across the nation.
We both worked with the veterinarian, Dr. Tim Lola. And as he was a consultant, he decided he wanted to get a bunch of producers together. So in the early 80s, he invited myself and a bunch of other people, including Bob, to be part of what he called a breakfast club. It evolved an hour of talking pigs and having breakfast. Bob early on recognized how production was changing in the southeast United States. And he would bring that perspective to these breakfast club meetings we had. And we would do a lot of discussion on, this is the way the Midwest is farming today, the future might be there. So as he brought that perspective to the industry, if you think back of it, it really changed. Because at that point, we were all one-site production, meaning we would farrow and birth the pigs, and we would bring them to market all in one site.
Bob had an incredible ability to focus on a project.
Bob surrounded himself with some good people to help execute the plan, and he was a leader of that plan, and I think we all learned from that also.
When he built his first sow farm, no one else was building it. When he built his feed mill, there was probably no one in the world that knew more about building a feed mill than he did.
In '94 when we met, I mean, he was adding 10,000 sows a year, which was just unheard of.
And yeah, Bob made changes and made moves that we watched and that we learned from. And I think he also was willing to learn from his competitors too, as to things that he could improve upon.
So Bob is rolling and going and growing Christensen farms, and you know, I'm down here and yet a new company and facing all the classical startup challenges. So I'm reaching out to Bob for advice, and it's all the way from lending and business relationships and nutrition, and we're kind of feeding off each other.
What they do today was very innovative back in the 90s when he was growing that business, where you controlled the nutrition, you controlled your genetic multiplication, you controlled all of those aspects so that ultimately you're producing a better product and you're doing it more consistently.
He was one of the leaders in multi-site production, and so we used to have farrow to finish farms. He was the first one to do that in a rapid, large-scale way in the upper Midwest. And that was so much better for the health of swine, to eradicate different diseases. Christensen Farms has grown tremendously, and a lot of that growth Bob oversaw. Bob would go to shows and he would come home and he'd tell his brother, I bought 2 farrowing crates at the show and you're gonna put them in this farrowing room. And so it was his own little research, and he would have 2 of this and 4 of this and 1 of these, and he'd see floors and farrowing crates, and he wanted to see them under his guidance, what they performed. And it was almost like he knew someday he's gonna be building hundreds and thousands of these.
We have a thing we call contract growers. The contract growers build the facilities, take care of the pigs, and really do what they love.
Contracting in general was a relatively new concept to the industry, and especially new to the state of Minnesota and the Midwest.
Raising hogs under a contract format with Bob Christensen did change my life. He was very influential in guiding me through the whole process of getting permitted, getting my barns up, getting them operational, and teaching me all the ins and outs of how to be a modern pork producer.
The contribution that Christensen Farms and Bob Christensen's family has made to the state fair, I think will be very beneficial. The state fair allows the pork industry and rural agriculture to have a tremendous venue to tell our story.
The way we're able to kind of share the swine industry and what's happening in the industry, both through swine exhibitions and through swine education to our fairgoers as we move into the future. And the enhancements that have taken place in the barn, thanks to Christensen Farms, are going to upgrade and update that barn from a 1940s, 1950s look to a more modern, current presentation.
Because folks are so removed from the farm and from agriculture in general, gets them one step closer to see what we're doing, get a glimpse of how the pigs are handled, how dedicated the young people are, especially in that environment, and taking care of those animals.
A lot of the things that the company is doing today are in his memos that he left when he passed away.
So he was a leader in so many different areas, from how to permit facilities, how to get it done, how to develop a contract grower relationship and network, how to bring the banks along to help finance these companies in their infancy. You know, Bob paved the way.
He was trying to raise pigs more cost efficient than anybody else in the world, and that would translate to feeding the world with affordable protein for more people in the world.
Bob made a huge influence in my life, and he gave me the confidence to go places where I never dreamed I could go.
There were a couple of times in my career I sat back and looked at what had been created at Christensen Farms and what Bob had done. And one, when he reached, I think it was about 150,000 sows, I think I just sat back and said, wow.
One of the things that he would say occasionally was, as we move forward in this pork industry, we want to be on the cutting edge, but we don't want to be on the bleeding edge.
Bob was very loyal to those that helped him succeed and helped him get what he needed to get done, and it went both ways.
I would call him intelligent, I would call him intense, and I would call him innovative.
Visionary, futuristic, entrepreneur.
A little bit unpredictable, but ultimately successful and appreciative to the people he works with.
He was so determined, and he set an example for all of us in that sense.
Always be interested whenever you meet people, because you never know when a moment comes where you meet somebody that 35 years later is still going to have effect on you.